Oh boy, this is gonna be a long video. Welcome YouTube, thanks for stopping by in this video. Again, this is gonna be a fairly long video as I'm going to be going pretty in depth with this review and this comparison between using a iPhone 8 Plus, which I'm recording on right now, or a Sony RX, whatever you want to get, whether it's a RX100, Mark 3, 4, 5, or the brand new 6. We will be taking a comparison. This is a Mark 5, so I'll be using the Mark 5 as my reference. So if you want to be a vlogger, I guess a little more than halfway through 2018 going into 2019, you've probably been thinking about what I should use as my recording device of choice. And I'm here to show you between the iPhone 8 Plus and the Sony RX100, whatever marks you want to get. So, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you like the video down below and consider subscribing to this channel where I do vlogs and I talk about Pokemon and we just have fun here. I mostly try to do vlogs. I want to talk about tech at some point whenever I get the chance to be able to afford more tech. But right now, the tech I can review right now is my iPhone 8 Plus, Sony RX100 Mark 5, and maybe my MacBook later on. We'll see. Anyways, let's get started with talking about the Sony RX100 first, because this is a pretty good camera, and also since I use iTunes, I figured I should record in my 4K first so that the rest of the video can be seen in 4K, for video purposes. So let's get started with the Sony RX100. Now I'm going to be listing out a bunch of points on like the pros and maybe mention some of the cons of the competition compared to the pros of the current device I'm using. So that will be the format of this video. Now to start things off, I want to talk about this awesome feature, the flip up screen. I don't know if you can see it or not. So the great thing about the Sony RX100 series of cameras is that they have this little screen that can flip up so you can see where exactly you're pointing your camera at. As you can see me pointing the camera at myself with my iPhone in hand. Pretty neat, right? If you're a vlogger, this is going to be such a saving grace for you, as you'll be able to see where exactly you're pointing at. Pointing at my doggy over there, maybe. But you can see my little doggy over there. I can see exactly where I'm pointing at, where I'm looking at. It's a great feature. I mean, it's pretty ingenious that they thought about doing that. And the other great thing about this is if you're a car vlogger, you'd be able to see if there's a lot of vibration going on. If, the camera or the car is shaky, you'd be able to see it and try to correct it so that the video isn't as shaky as it's being. But this flip-up camera, it's freaking amazing. And that is one thing that I wish my iPhone had or could do. Maybe somebody should come up with an invention to do that. Next thing I want to talk about is that you don't have to worry about not noticing if it's recording or not. As with the iPhone, sometimes things will happen, like say you get a phone call or, because some people like me, when I'm recording, and this is what you should do as well if you're recording, let me close this window real quick, is that if you're recording and you get a phone call on Do Not Disturb, which as I was saying is something you should do if you're going to record, put your phone on Do Not Disturb, because any little thing can mess up the recording. And you won't be able to see when your phone is not recording, which has happened to me several times when I've been talking to the camera, turn my phone around because I've been using, the rear facing camera, and I didn't know that, I don't know for how long, I usually have to watch the video, is that the phone stopped recording my video after a while. So that always sucks, to not know when your camera is not recording. And that's the great thing about the flip-up camera. You'll be able to see when it's not recording anymore, or if it's starting to overheat or whatever. You get to see the information right here on the screen. It'll tell you everything that's going on and you'll be able to see it while recording. And that kind of plays into my next point, which is that you don't have to worry about phone calls interrupting your videos on this camera, which is great. Like I said, it's happened to me a few times now, and it sucks, especially when you don't know that your camera is not recording anymore. One time I was able to catch it because I was using a front-facing camera, so I was able to see right away that it stopped recording, but it still sucks to have phone calls interrupt your video, especially if you're trying to get a specific thing or event happening on camera. The worst thing ever is missing that shot that you really wanted to get because somebody calls you. And Do Not Disturb helps with that. But one thing that people don't know is that in Do Not Disturb, typically the favorites, from your favorite contacts, their calls still will get through and mess up your video. Another great thing about this camera in general, I don't know, I can't speak for the older generation or Mark whatever's of the Sony RX100 lines. I can't speak for the Mark II, 3, or 4, but I do know for the Mark V is that it has incredible low light capabilities when using video or taking pictures. It's definitely much better than the iPhone at night. And if you're more interested in like seeing how it does at night, you can check out my other video. I'm gonna have it linked up in the corner, I think over here or something, with the eye of a video I actually did of reviewing this camera, and I was showing the low light capabilities of this camera. And in general, this camera definitely far outperforms my iPhone 8 Plus in low light shots. And I believe it will still outperform like the iPhone 10, because the iPhone 10's camera still doesn't have a big enough sensor like this camera does. And this camera would just capture more light and make it less grainy than an iPhone 10 even would. Now, another great feature of this camera is that it gives you greater control over the settings of pictures, aperture, whatever you want to do. If you're a true photographer, I don't understand all of it, but you do have more settings that you can go into, scenes, panorama, which typical iPhones have too. But you can do all sorts of things and all sorts of settings. Change up your exposure. There are so many options, and this is just on the spinning wheel. And when you actually get into the actual settings, they'll give you even more things to play around with. There's just so much more things that you can do with this camera, especially for you photographers out there. Me, myself, I'm not much a photographer. I'm very amateur, so I don't know most of anything that has to deal with taking pictures and the exposures, and I couldn't even begin to start explaining it. But this definitely does give far more options than what an iPhone would give you. I believe that there are some apps out there for the iPhone for the camera where it does give you more options, but this is really hard to beat. A dedicated camera is really hard to beat when it comes to options. Now, as I was saying earlier, with the thing that sucks with using an iPhone when you're getting phone calls and such, you can, with the camera, you can still use it even if you get a phone call. Crazy, right? But yeah, it's great that you can still use this camera even when you're getting a phone call. It doesn't interrupt anything. If anything, it'll add to your video because you can like play it up like, oh, I'm getting a important phone call, or it's a mystery of what's going on and whatnot. So that's definitely a plus with this camera, is that you don't have to worry about phone calls. In fact, it could add to your videos. The other great thing about this is that, say you're reading notes or articles from your phone, you'd be able to do that while recording with this camera, whereas if you're using your iPhone, you can't really look at notes and record at the same time. So this frees up, oh, almost took a picture. This frees up, other uses for your phone or other devices and whatnot. So this camera really does free you up for more things and saves you from potential things. Now, the other great thing about this camera for you people that still have the SD card slot is that you will get far faster transfer speeds with these SD cards than you would with an iPhone. And I'm telling you, it is so much faster, especially if you're using iDrop on your iPhone, and especially even more so, I'm not sure how much sense that made, if you're recording on your iPhone at 4K 60 frames per second or 4K 30 frames per second, because it takes forever for the AirDrop to transfer those videos from your iPhone to your Mac, which is what I do, and which is why I'm really going to hate transferring this video over to my Mac when I'm done with this portion of the video, because it's going to take forever. Now, another great thing about this camera is that this lens also has optical image stabilization, which is something that took me a while to research and figure out because I wasn't quite sure if it does or not. And it does. It's honestly, I don't know if it's quite as good as an iPhone's optical image stabilization, but it works. It's great. It's definitely better than nothing for those people that try to record videos using their front-facing cameras on their iPhones. This is definitely better than that. And since the iPhone only has it on the rear-facing camera, this is great because this essentially always has optical image stabilization, whether you're facing it at yourself or if you're facing it at something else. No matter how you have your camera positioned, it's always going to be optically stabilized. Whereas with the iPhone, you can only use the rear-facing camera. You use the front-facing camera, it's not there, and it's very shaky video. Another great thing about this camera is that its autofocus is so good and it is so fast. I'm telling you, like, as soon as I put it on myself, as soon as I put it on Leia, it's just lightning with how fast it optically stabilizes. And it's incredible. It's really good at picking up faces too. It's bravo. Whereas with the iPhone, you have to tap, 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 tap. This thing automatically does it. And it also gives me the ability to select where I want it to focus on. With this button right here in the middle, it gives you this little square where you can press the button again and it'll let you choose where you want the focus to stay on. And if you want to get rid of it, all you have to do is press it again. So that's the amazing, well, I guess lock autofocus is what it's called. So the autofocus is great. Also on this camera, something that true photographers I'm sure would enjoy, is it has this electronic viewfinder. And it is pretty cool. I've only used it a few times because I don't know what the heck I'm doing. But when you bring it out, it automatically takes off. Well, it doesn't turn off the screen until it senses that you have like your eye right there looking through it. Then it'll turn it off and it'll turn it back on. So let's see if I can even get it in there. All right, so you can kind of see in there now. And it's pretty cool. Sorry this isn't the greatest video for it, but you can kind of get an idea of what it looks like inside of there. So that's cool. I really like this. Makes me feel like a true photographer, even though I'm definitely not. Oh boy, there goes the autofocus again. That's what I'm saying. This camera is so good at autofocusing, and the iPhone is not that great. Also, another great feature of having a dedicated camera is that you also get dedicated batteries, which you can carry multiples of if you really want to, and have multiple charged batteries. Whereas with an iPhone, you essentially get one charge and you're done unless you plug it into something. With this, you can carry multiple batteries, and if one is dying, just swap it out and charge them when you get home. So that's a great feature. People with Samsung phones know that was a great feature for a while, to be able to just swap batteries on the fly. It's a great feature, especially if you're out and about for a while and you're worried about battery life, because that's one thing I hate about this camera, especially in the Mark V, is that the battery life is not that great. So, word of advice, buy multiple batteries. I actually have a link down below if I'm able to do that with Amazon. I'll have a link down below for more batteries that you can use to carry around for this camera. Another thing I would suggest is getting a screen protector for it, because the screen does scratch up pretty easily. But you can see all that in my video that I had tagged earlier for my review for this camera. Alright, so the last good thing I really want to talk about with this camera is that, as you can see right here, it can just be propped up, looking straight forward. This is great, right? I have my old iPhone over here, don't mind the desk, and don't mind what I'm doing on it, but you definitely cannot stand it up like you could for this camera. It's great. I can't tell you how many times I've propped this camera up somewhere just to record on it. Whereas with like an iPhone, you'll definitely need something behind it to keep it propped up so you can record. And even still, because this camera has this flip up screen, I can see if anything is actually in the shot. Whereas with the iPhone, if you're using the rear facing camera especially, you won't be able to see if you're actually in a shot or not, because obviously the phone screen is pointing away from you. Or if you're using a front-facing screen, you're not going to get as great quality, but you'll be able to see, I guess, of where, you know, the shot is. So that's a great thing about this camera. I love this. All right, so that's going to be the end of this portion of the video. I'm now going to switch over to using this camera to talk about the iPhone. And please excuse my quirky face, and as you can see, it took me a while to record that video. It's probably going to end up being like half the length of that for that section. But anyways, I am sending it over to my, as you can see, that's some pretty good autofocus, is that I am airdropping this to my Mac, and I've been sitting here for like a few minutes and it's still on the waiting part. So that's what I mean by it takes forever to transfer these videos over to the Mac, especially if you're using AirDrop. I'm sure there are other means to transfer your videos and whatnot over, but man, it takes forever for AirDrop, and especially for videos this long. And this video is in 4K 60 frames per second, so it is 2:51 right now. So let's see how long it actually takes. I'll be right back. Please excuse the fan noise, but I wanted to give a quick update to show another reason why having a dedicated camera is better than using your iPhone. I was trying to log into Steam, and for some reason I was logged out, so I had to redo my login stuff, and brought up that I needed to use the Steam code thing, so I had to leave this to bring up my Steam app so I can get the Steam code. So now I had to start over with waiting. The current time is 2:53, so we'll see about how long it takes from this point. So I had to restart, obviously, because I had to leave this app. We'll leave the Photos app in order to get the Steam Guard thing going. So another great reason to have a dedicated camera. You don't have to worry about your phone or not being able to do anything on your phone when you need to do other stuff like bring up your Steam Guard stuff for your Steam account on your computer. So there's that. And don't worry about that text. Well, it's been almost an hour. Not even a quarter of the way through. So this is what you can expect from a little over 18-minute 4K 60 frames per second video on the iPhone transferring through AirDrop to the Mac. Yeah. I'll give you an update a little bit later. Alright, so time is 4:12 and it's finally done. So yeah, you're looking at a little over an hour for an 18-minute video. Alright, so now let's finally start talking about vlogging with your iPhone. Now, what I want to start off with is that vlogging with your iPhone, it's excellent for beginning YouTubers. I started with my old iPhone 6 Plus with my very first vlog going to PAX West. And the iPhone's camera is great as it is for vlogging. As you will see earlier, I was vlogging with 4K 60 frames per second. That's with the 8 Plus. Older iPhones like the 6 and onwards, they can record at 1080p, which is plenty for vlogging. I don't think very many people are going to be watching vlogs in 4K or 2K or whatever. 1080p, even 720p is great for vlogging, as long as you're not doing anything lower than 720p. I'd recommend 1080p if possible, but these cameras are great. They are excellent. They're nothing to sneeze at, especially during a day where there's plenty of light. At night, you might run into some problems with how terrible they are at night shots, but otherwise these are great cameras for starting vloggers. And it's also great if you want to travel light on a trip and vlog light on a trip. You can do everything on this phone. You can record videos, you can edit videos. For me, I use iMovie when I'm editing on the go, when I'm just using my phone. And don't worry about that vlog, that was an old one. But you can edit movies on your iPhone and upload them straight to YouTube from your iPhone. You can do everything on your iPhone. You don't need a computer or expensive software on a computer like, I don't know, Final Cut Pro or whatever. I still use iMovie because I'm poor, but you can do everything that you need on your iPhone. Also, one thing I like about this iPhone more than my Sony camera is, I accidentally went into the alarm, which is also great that this phone can do that the camera can't do, is that it has this awesome zoom feature. You know, or this Sony RX100 Mark V cannot zoom like this, especially not this far. As you can see, it gets pretty close to her with the camera. I guess it still gets plenty close with the Sony. But if I were to say want to zoom in into that closet, I can tap that and I can zoom in even further. Granted, the rear camera doesn't have OIS on it, but, whoops, I keep doing that. But I can still zoom in really far. Look how close I am. Now with the Sony, that's as far as I can zoom. Now the RX100 Mark VI now has the ability to zoom in like even further than this. But you're also talking about a $1,200 camera at that point. So honestly, I'd suggest just selling with this. This camera's zoom function is plenty. Very plenty. As you just saw, you can zoom in very far. So that's one thing I like about this iPhone over my Sony. The other thing about this camera is that it does zoom in much faster, as you saw earlier with me just tapping that button, and it's already at 2x zoom, and then I can just, you know, do the scroll thing. Whereas with this camera, if you also couldn't hear earlier for, you know, how loud the zoom is, I don't know if this is the case for every Sony RX100 camera that's out there, but I know for mine especially, you can hear that zoom. And it takes forever compared to this where you just tap a button and it's automatically zoomed in. Also, the camera on this phone comes with way more stock features. You can do slow-mo and you can do things like time-lapse, which is incredible. It's like the main thing people do when they're editing videos, trying to get that slow motion going or that time-lapse going. This camera just does it. Whereas my Sony camera, you have to pay for the extra features. And the prices for the extra features range anywhere from $5 to $30 for filters. And just for example's sake, the time-lapse app for the Sony RX100 Mark V right now, at this moment, is $10. $10 for time-lapse. Look at this. I got it right here on my iPhone, and I've used it several times before. In one of my more recent videos, I did a video of my wife getting a tattoo. I did a time-lapse of that. And it was pretty cool, just doing it from my phone. Another great feature of having an iPhone for your vlogging is that you can also do live streaming from it. All you have to do is go to the YouTube app, hit the camera up here, and then tap go live. And then you just allow access to everything. And there you go. You have the ability to just go live with your phone. You can't do that with the Sony, but you can do that with the phone. So you can not only do that on YouTube, but you can also do it on Twitch. You know, just hit your person and go live. And you can enable everything. Enable camera, enable the microphone. Got it. And you can just start streaming from your phone. So it's a great way to interact with your community just straight from your phone. You don't have to have a laptop to do it. You can just do it straight from your phone wherever you are, wherever you have service anyways. And this is great for, like I said, interacting with your fan base, with your people, with your audience. You do it from anywhere, anytime, any place, as long as you have the service for it. Now, the other great thing about using an iPhone, the iPhone 8 Plus, over this camera is that I have much better battery life when it comes to recording from this iPhone. Like way better. Like 10 times better battery life recording from this phone at 4K 60 frames per second versus recording from this camera at 1080p 60 frames per second. This thing lasts way longer. Also, if you have iCloud on your iPhones, all your videos get backed up into the cloud. So if you were to lose your phone, you at least won't lose all your footage that you had. Well, I guess depending on how soon all the videos and stuff were backed up, in most cases, everything will be backed up and you'll be fine. And even if you don't use iCloud, you can use Google Photos to back up all your stuff. You can use Google Photos to back up all your stuff and you'll be fine. As you can see, I haven't backed up anything, but it's still an awesome way to back up your photos and make sure you have them. And you can access them from a computer from different kind of cloud services. Do it from Google Photos, iCloud, you can probably do it from OneDrive. You have all sorts of options. With the camera, you have one option, your memory card. And if you lose your memory card, that's it. If things accidentally get deleted on your memory card, that's it. On one of my last trips to California, I had an incident where I was vlogging and I saw a USB port in my family's car and I thought I can use that USB port to charge my camera. Well, what ended up happening was that all my footage, like everything from that point and previously, which I had taken, great memories of pictures and stuff, everything was deleted. I lost everything in an instant. So that's another great thing about using an iPhone over using a dedicated camera. Another great thing about using an iPhone is that for the, I believe the 7 and onward, you get a bit of water resistance in your phones. So this thing can get wet and it won't just die like the Sony would. If the Sony gets wet, it has a higher probability of just dying and you're just being out of a camera. Whereas with this phone, you can be in the rain, you can accidentally be knocked into the pool, whatever, and this thing will survive the water much more easily than the Sony camera would. One time the Sony camera actually got too cold. Actually no, it got too hot, and I tried sticking it into the freezer to cool it down because I could only record in 4K on this camera for like 5 minutes. I'll get to that point later, and overheat it, so I wanted to cool it down real quick to continue my recording. And moisture got into the camera lids, and you know, me being a dummy not knowing any better, that's what happened. Another great thing about recording and doing vlogging from your iPhone is that Apple has stores that you can go to, physical stores. Now in my area, I've looked around and I haven't been able to find any Sony stores near me. Sony. Okay, that is not, none of that is Sony. Oh, I guess a sewing company. But there are no stores around me that I can go to if anything were to happen to my camera, which something did happen, and I'll get into that in a minute. But look at all these Apple stores that I can go to. Okay, there's not that many. There's Apple at the Tacoma Mall, and then Apple at the South Center, and I can go to physical therapy if I really want to, but that's 2 Apple stores near me versus the 0 Sony stores near me. So the quick story of what happened to my Sony camera is that, as you can tell, the loud zooming issue that I've been having, I tried to call Sony to get it fixed, and they actually wanted me to pay for the shipping for my camera, to ship my camera to them, even though it was under warranty and it was what I believe to be a defect from their end. They wanted me to pay for shipping and send it out to them to get it fixed. Whereas if something happens to my iPhone, especially if I have Apple Care, but if I'm in the first year warranty, if something were to happen to it, I could just bring it into an Apple store. Whether I need to get my screen replaced or whatever, I can just walk into an Apple store and be helped right away. With the camera, I have to mail it in, and I'll be without the camera for however long that takes. Another great thing about using an iPhone for vlogging is that you get this whole screen real estate for video, for recording. You can see a whole lot more than the tiny screen that's on my Sony camera. And trust me, when you can see more, it's great because you actually know what's actually going to be in the shot and how it's actually going to look on a big screen. Another great thing about this iPhone is that it has tracking software, so if my phone were to go missing or lost or stolen, you know, whatever, I can track my iPhone and find it if I need to, and remotely shut it off if I need to. So there's that. If I lose this camera, that's it. There's no way I can find it, especially if somebody steals it. There's no way I'll be able to find it unless I put like some sort of tracking thing on it, which still somebody can just remove unless I somehow slyly stick it into the battery. I don't know if that's possible. I might have to look into that. Another great thing about using an iPhone for recording is that the camera starts up way faster than the Sony does. Like way faster. Okay, it was already up. Let's close all these. Okay, and startup time in 3, 2, 1. Oh. And it's ready to go. The camera on the Sony takes a while to start up, and by that time you would have already missed a shot. I've caught some good shots using my iPhone because of how fast the camera starts up. Even when it's, you know, the screen's off. I just press it, swipe over, there you go. So, there's that. The camera is faster and it's easier to get going, get recording or whatever. There's also lots of free and cheap filter apps or whatever for the camera. Don't worry about my Credit Karma and stuff. But all you have to do is go to the App Store, type in, I don't know, camera. And there's lots of options for it. Some paid, some free. So many more options than what the Sony camera offers, and cheaper. Plus, like I said, I get the built-in features of slow motion video. I can even do filters if I really wanted to. So there's that. For you, for all the people that want more customization with their cameras, you can do a lot with the iPhone, especially with the apps, and there are a lot of free apps and a lot of cheaper apps than with the camera. You can also easily share photos, like if you were to take any photos, you can share them a lot quicker to places like Instagram or Twitter than you would with the Sony. With the Sony, you have to download a special app, which is this Play Memories app. You have to connect the camera to the phone, do some sort of password thing, and then transfer the photos over, and it's a whole ordeal when you can just take a photo with your phone. And the great thing about recording with a phone is that while you're recording video, There's also this little button down here where you can just take a quick picture while you're recording video, which is pretty neat. So there's the video, and then there's the picture. Another great thing about using the phone is that if I were to accidentally delete a picture or a video, it's not deleted forever. All it does is goes to my recently deleted folder, and there's everything that I had. It's that easy. And I don't permanently lose everything. Whereas I've deleted some things by accident on this camera, and guess what? It was gone forever. Also, possibly the biggest thing that's the positive about, especially with the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus, is that I can record in 4K 60 frames per second for a long time. Whereas on the Sony, I can only do that for a maximum of 5 minutes before the camera automatically shuts off. Well, not shuts off, but automatically stops recording. If it even makes it to that 5 minutes. Usually it overheats before it gets to that point, and right now it's even overheating just recording right now at 1080p 60 frames per second. The camera on the iPhone records much longer and at a higher quality than what the Sony does. Another great thing about vlogging on the iPhone is that you can plug in a mic or headphones into the phone to get like that mic quality recording. With the Sony, there is no port for plugging in any headphones. You're pretty much SOL, but you can plug in some headphones or mic into the iPhone and get better audio quality than what you would from the, I guess, stock or outside mics on the phone. And just so you guys have an idea of how long it takes to transfer my videos from an SD card to my Mac, I have several videos selected, so all in all, we'll just say it's like about 25 minutes. I know it's more than that, but about 25 minutes of video. And it's importing. Don't mind my weird face. And it's going to take about 3 minutes. Compared to that over an hour it took to airdrop my video from my iPhone to my Mac. About 3 minutes. So that's one positive of using a dedicated camera over the iPhone. Yeah, saves you so much time. So all in all, the reason why I'd pick the iPhone over the Sony RX100 is that it's so much easier to use than the Sony RX100 cameras for vlogging, and it also has more features, free features such as slow motion and time lapse. And I also have the ability to edit my videos on my iPhone that I just recorded videos on and upload them straight to YouTube if I really wanted to. Now, the reason why I pick a dedicated camera for vlogging is that it has an awesome flip-up screen, as you saw earlier. It always has optical image stabilization when I'm using it, regardless of where I'm pointing the camera, whereas with the iPhone, it's only on the rear-facing camera. And it has way better low-light visibility than the iPhone does. When it comes to pictures and videos at night, this camera beats it out hands down. Also, it frees up the use of your iPhone for whatever you want to use your iPhone for, phone calls, using it for notes, reading articles, whatever you want to do while recording with your camera. Plus, it saves memory on your iPhone because not everybody is able to afford the 256 gigabyte iPhone storage or whatever. But, you know, all in all, if somebody were to come out with a device where I can use my rear facing camera on my iPhone and also have like a flip up screen so I can see where my iPhone's pointing, I would use my iPhone over the Sony camera, and I wouldn't use the Sony camera at all. I wouldn't even recommend having a dedicated camera, especially if you're a small creator like myself, where you don't really need it. You don't need a dedicated camera, but you can use your iPhone for everything, and that's all you really need, especially if you're small like me. I kind of kicking myself in the butt for getting this dedicated camera because I really didn't need it. I got it thinking that it would help my channel out, but it really doesn't. I would have been fine just getting by with just my iPhone, but learn from my mistakes. If you're small like me, your iPhone is perfectly good. It works perfectly well, better than a dedicated camera in some aspects. And I mean, let's be honest, people aren't going to really care about what kind of camera you use, whether it be an iPhone or a dedicated camera. People are here on your channel to watch you, watch your stories, learn from you, connect with you, interact with you. They're here for you, not your camera gear. So save yourself some money, especially if you're small. Don't get a dedicated camera. If you have an iPhone, especially an 8 or 8 Plus, where you can record in 60 frames per second at 4K, just use the iPhone. People aren't going to notice the difference, and if they do, it's going to come in second place compared to interacting with you and hearing your stories and such. Later on in life, when I hopefully get bigger on YouTube. I would suggest using a dedicated camera when you're a little bit bigger on YouTube, because then it'll free up your phone for doing business calls or whatever you want to do, business things with your phone. It frees it up for that, and you can use your dedicated camera for that. That's about when I suggest getting a dedicated camera like the Sony RX100, but that's just me. You don't have to listen to me or learn from my mistakes. You can just go out and get it, but I'd highly recommend just using your phone, especially if you're like under 1,000 subscribers or such, where you're not even getting monetization anymore. So there's that. I hope you enjoyed the review. If you enjoyed it, make sure you like the video down below and consider subscribing to the channel, where I do vlogs and talk about Pokemon and tech whenever I can. And it's just a fun time. And I try to make more videos where I can help people out make decisions. And right now, my recommendation is just use your iPhone for your vlogs, especially if you're a small channel. Save yourself the money, save yourself the hassle. iPhone works perfectly well. If you want to edit your videos on like a Windows PC, I'm not sure what the steps are transferring your videos from your iPhone to your Windows, but I'm sure there's plenty of guides online that can tell you how to do it. I don't think it'll be that hard to do. So there's that. Like I said, like the video down below if you like it. If you have any more questions, make sure you ask them down below and I'll try to answer them as best as I can. Thanks for watching. Catch you in the next video. Peace.